Welcome to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with, as always, my co-host, John Barker, representative from the 70th District. And John always brings out a special guest, and he has today. He's one that is familiar to you folks because you've seen him a number of times, and he's great to come up to be a part of the show. And this Dan Hawkins from the 100th District out of Wichita. Dan, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
For being here.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. It's actually good to be out of the house.
I bet it is. I know you came straight from Wichita up to here and shoot the show with John, and then you're headed back.
Straight back.
Boy, there's a lot going on for you guys right now in the legislature across this nation. And John, let me begin with you. Fill us in on what have you been doing?
Okay, well, been on the phone every day. Of course, we closed the legislature down about 12, 13 days early last Thursday. But you know, while we're at home, we're getting phone calls. I'm getting phone calls from this guy here, the majority leader, keeping us all updated. And I've talked to our city managers, Jane Volts in Abilene, John here in Chapman. Talked with the clerks in Solomon. Talked with the city manager down in Marion, just to see if the state needs to be doing something to help cities and counties. I also talked with Brad Hallman, the county administrator. I think they've got a good grip. They're doing what they need to do. Any help that the state can give them, I'm willing to go and ask the governor for additional test kits or whatever we need. As of today, about 1 o'clock today, Dan and I got this together, there's 202 confirmed cases in Kansas. 3,229 people have been tested. So you're looking at 202 out of 3,229. I don't know what the percentages is, but of that, 97 were women, 105 were men, and it's affected 31 counties in the state so far. We don't think we've met the goal, I guess the apex where it starts going down yet, but hopefully we'll get that in the next week or two. You know, I think all of us have been watching President Trump's daily briefing, which I think has been very helpful to the public. You know, it is alarming, but we should not be panicking at this point. Our grocery stores are full. We need to really thank truck drivers for that.
Yeah.
We need to thank our health professionals who go in every day. And, you know, we're getting all the equipment that we need here in Kansas. I understand New York City may be a little different. But I want to thank Dan for driving up. If you'll notice, folks, we're not getting close to each other. We're social distancing. But I would encourage everyone to do that in the county. That's the only way we're going to stop it. And as I mentioned last week, you know, good Kansans. You know, we've went through tornadoes. We went through prairie fires. We went through floods. We went through the great pandemic of 1918. And we've all survived those. There are rough times, but in Kansas we all pull together. My mother used to tell me, we're hitched up in a team, and we all pull in the same direction. So we need to continue to do that. We need to follow the guidelines put out by Dr. Holmes, our county health officer. And if we do that, we will eventually get through this. And hopefully when the summer gets here, we'll all be able to enjoy our summers. And the high school kids, I understand, are talking about having a prom in the summer. And maybe they're still planning on having a graduation. So those are the good things. There's a few bad things. We did have 4 deaths in Kansas, and that's tragic. But you know, we continue to go forward. We'll get past this, and I know Dan's on several committees at the legislature while we're out of session, and he's going to talk about those in the next 7 or 8 minutes. We'll try to keep him in line, folks. But Dan's a good friend, and I'm so thankful that he comes up here and does these shows with me. You know, we've had a number of other guests, but I always call Dan my regular guy.
Oh.
He comes up, and he's always a wealth of information, and so we'll just leave it to him, and we'll talk about some of the governor's executive orders that she's issued in the past week that's been approved by the LCC, which Dan sits on as the majority leader in the House. But I will mention one other thing. The governor has a hotline that constituents can call if they have problems or concerns about the virus, and we'll try to get this on a screen for you at some point in time. The number is 785-268-8500, and there'll be people manning that phone if you have questions. The governor's office has it manned 24 hours a day. So you can call that number, and if you have any questions, they'll try to get the answer for you.
Okay, good. We're going to cut away, take a break here in just a little bit, and then when we come back, Dan, I want to talk to you because House Majority Leader, that's a tremendous responsibility, and I know that you take it serious, and that's why you're up here to share this information. John and I don't hold it against you that you didn't wear the right uniform because, see, we're
kind of
wearing
noticed
red.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of noticed that.
It's okay. We'll cut away, take a break. We'll see if we can find something red for Dan, and we'll be back. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my co-host, John Barker. As you're looking at it on your screen, John's on your far left. He's the representative, 70th District, and has been on this your fourth term, John.
Correct.
And in the middle, of course, is Dan Hawkins. Dan's the House Majority Leader from Wichita, and we appreciate you being here, Dan. And you're on your
Fourth term.
fourth term.
also.
You guys came in
Yep,
together.
we did.
All right, and John, before we cut away to break, we were talking a little bit about you've been back to the cities because they had a lot of anxiety. So you've been meeting with city managers and
Right.
county administrator and city administrators and
city clerks.
city clerks. And did you find that there's a lot of anxiety, or is it more along the line of I have questions about these things? We know we'll be all right because good Lord's always in charge, but we know we'll be all right. So what did you find with the
I think
people?
it was more of the questions. I talked with the city clerk over in Solomon. She had a number of questions about whether, since there's two in the office, whether one could work at home while one worked at the office, because they didn't want, if one of them came down with it, it would contaminate or the other one would catch it. And those kind of questions, I said, basically those are city commission questions. They can authorize that for you to do that. Of course, if you had a city manager, then the city manager could also authorize that. I talked with Jane Foltz today. Jane does a great job for the city of Abilene, and I never see her overexcited.
Yeah,
She
does a good job.
She does a great job. She's level-headed, and she knows the task in front of her, and she'll take it step by step. She's got a good city commission that work with her, and so I anticipate no problems at the city. If they have any questions, of course, because there are some unknowns about what is reimbursable from the state under the emergency plan, what they could get compensated for, the cities, for they'll not be out additional funds. I talked with John, the city manager here in Chapman, and Roger down in Marion County. And it's not really that they're, it's mostly about questions. How do we do this, or what's going to be the protocol?
What can we do?
What can we do, and what's the protocol that we need to follow?
Yeah.
And of course, I encourage them both to follow their respective county's health officer. Like ours is Dr. Holmes, and Marion County it's a different doctor, and to go to the websites for health and environment, which will give them guidance. Go to the League of Municipalities,
Right.
who already have draft resolutions that the city commissions can pass.
Mm-hmm.
So if they follow those steps, I anticipate all the cities doing really well.
Yeah.
And so, but it's mostly just the unknowns.
And we'll make it through this.
Sure, we will.
So Dan, where do you want to go, buddy?
Well, I thought I would share with your listeners really what we're doing since we're out of session.
Okay.
As John said, we ended session last Thursday, so a week ago yesterday. It was a late day. We didn't get out of there until about 7 o'clock that night. But one of the things we passed was House Concurrent Resolution 5025, which is the disaster resolution that extends, or that will at the appropriate time extend the governor's disaster declaration. So the governor has the ability to declare a disaster for 15 days.
Right.
At the end of 15 days, then an organization or a part of the state is called the State Finance Council, which is made up of the governor and several legislators. They can extend that for 30 days one time, and then it's up to the legislature to continually extend that. Well, when that resolution first came out, it basically extended it clear out to January 25th of next year. There was a lot of angst in doing that. And it also there wasn't a lot of oversight to it, and so during negotiations in our conference committee, what we did was we put it back to the LCC, the Legislative Coordinating Council, which is made up of House and Senate leadership, to look at each of the governor's executive orders and make sure that there's no overreach, that she's not overstepping her authority. And so in this last week, we've had 2 LCC meetings where we've already started looking at her executive orders. All of them have been okayed. We haven't found anything that's really a problem. We just had one before I got here today. At 2 o'clock today, we had a phone LCC meeting. We have one person there in the State House, and the rest of us call in by phone. And the governor put out Executive Order 2014 yesterday in 2015. 2014 basically ramped down the amount of people that can gather in one place. So now it's down to 10. Remember, originally it came out 200, 250,
right.
Went down to 50. Now it's down to 10. So she's made it an executive order for the state. No more than 10 people can gather at one time.
And that just concurs with what the president has said.
It does. It does.
She's just conforming to what the president's
Right.
suggestion is.
The additional order 2015 is a very important order. It's called the Kansas Essential Functions Framework. And so that sets out the essential functions, those individuals and companies that are considered essential to society, essential to keeping our society going, to keep government going, and all of the things that we need to be able to live. What we were having occur throughout the state, there have been several counties that have already done their stay-at-home orders. Sedgwick did one on Monday of this week, and then Lyon County and a couple other counties followed suit, Shawnee County. They were kind of coming up with a patchwork, a lot of different things, not very consistent among any of the counties. And so the governor came out yesterday with this essential framework to bring all the counties to where everybody's using this. Kind of everybody's singing off the same sheet of music now.
So if you're living on one county near the line that you're not, and working in the other, you're not caught in that.
That's
something
correct.
that's different.
That's correct.
Okay.
So it was a pretty exhaustive list, but now that's out there. The counties can start conforming to that, and I think that's going to help out as we go forward. There's still probably some counties that are going to come out with these orders, so we have to be ready for those, and they have to conform.
Okay, we're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my co-host, John Barker. And if you're watching on your screen, of course, John's off to your left, and Dan Hawkins is in the middle. Dan's from the 100th District out of Wichita, House Majority Leader. And Dan, before we cut away to break, you were kind of giving us some updates. You want to continue with some of that about?
So Doug, our state health officer, who is Dr. Lee Norman, he's the Secretary of Kansas Department of Health and Environment. He's also our state health officer. He is the head doc in the state. He's been very consistent in his message to the whole state. Every time he speaks, he always says the same thing. This disease, this virus that's out there, isn't that much different than some of the others that have been in this world. John talked early about 1918 and the death toll that occurred there. In recent times, we've had the SARS epidemic overseas. We've had MERS, swine flu. Those were all very, very deadly diseases in their own right, but they weren't as they didn't transmit as fast, and that's the difference between this one. This one has a very fast, very quick infectious rate. It just moves fast through people, and so some of these counties that have went out and put these stay-at-home orders in, he has spoke against them. He said, "Listen, that's not going to stop this. It's not going to really do any good. What's going to do good? What's going to do good for our people is to adhere to the basic principles that keep people from catching it." And that's number one, social distancing, making sure that people don't get within 6 foot of each other. I was walking around the park yesterday close to my house, saw some people, and we stayed apart. We stayed 6, 7 foot apart and talked. You just don't want to get close to people, so keep your distance. Wash your hands a lot. This virus does not live out, on surfaces very long. Matter of fact, if you take an alcohol wipe and wipe a surface, it'll kill it within 10 to 18 seconds. Now, if it just lands on a surface and it sits there undisturbed, it could last a day or two. So it can last a while. So hand washing, washing 20 seconds with soap and water, warm soapy water, does wonders. Use the hand sanitizer. I've not used as much hand sanitizer in my life as I have in the last 2 weeks. I mean, hand sanitizer has actually become quite a commodity. They can't keep it on the shelves. But it's truly effective at stopping the spread of this disease. Also, if there's somebody coughing, get away from them. If you are coughing, use your arm your sleeve of on your arm to cover your mouth, or if you're sneezing. That way you don't just spray those germs out across the air, so people can walk through and catch it. It actually, they don't believe that it's an aerosol type thing. If somebody does sneeze or cough, it drops fairly quickly to the ground. But it can also live on those surfaces quite a while, so you can spread it very easily. So it's really important, and that's what he's been consistent in saying. It's important for everybody to adhere to those rules, and if we do, we'll stop the spread of this. Or I shouldn't say stop it, we'll slow it down.
Yeah.
It's going to spread, there's no doubt. It's just a lot of people are going to get it and have no effects whatsoever. It's kind of like a cold. But for those who have respiratory problems, for those who are immune compromised, that's the people that are really having problems with this, and of course some of them are dying from it.
Sure. Well, if people wanted to go to a central location, where would they go to get information that would be a good way that they can do that? How would they do that?
Well, one thing, John talked about KDHE's website. KDHE has a great website, but the House leadership, Speaker Ron Reichman, myself, Blaine Finch, developed a site. It's called KansasTogether.com. And we aren't putting our own content out there. We're not editorializing. It's not political in any way. It's just links to all these different places that you go to get your questions answered. If somebody's having problems with unemployment or wants to know how to file unemployment, there's a link on there. It could be stuff with business. It could be personal stuff. It has all the government links. So it's really just a site with just a ton of links out there that you can go to find the information you need. And in addition, we have a Facebook site by the same name, Kansas Together. It's on Facebook. It's has a lot more up-to-date information as far as things that KDHE is putting out or the federal government's putting out. We even put some stuff out there recently on what the Senate did here a couple days ago. And of course the U.S. House passed that $2 trillion package just today, this afternoon. So that's been passed. So all of that stuff is out there. It's really just trying to give people a site that if they have a question, they can go on there, read down through there, find the link to the place where they need to get to.
We'll put it up on the screen so they'll be able to copy that down and have that for the purposes that you have said. Well, so what does Kansas do, and what have they done in regards to this? Like you mentioned, the federal government put in $2 trillion. Has Kansas put in additional financing to cope with this situation?
Well, we put in $50 million out of our budget we passed last week, right, Dan? Just for the virus. Now that may not be enough, but the governor's called for that. She does not want us, when we go back in, if we go back in, to spend any more money, because she may have to cut the basic budget that we set, because we don't know what this is going to cost. And she's being very responsible in doing that. And but we did give her $100 million more than she'd asked for.
We did, and there's a little caveat to that. We did not pay the layering payment to Capers, which is a loan, so we're still paying interest on that loan, and so it's a little bit different than people think when they say, well, you put $65 million more in than what she asked for. Well, it's because we didn't pay some things. Right. So we got some interest.
But she didn't necessarily, because she was thinking she was going to be re-amortize Capers, and that didn't work for her.
Right. So,
John, when you were here last time, while you were sharing that information about that $50 million, and boy, the legislature acted very quickly to jump on that one, and I didn't see that there were much for delays, unlike what the feds go through up there.
No, we worked fast.
We actually worked together.
Obviously, to make it happen that fast. We're going to cut away, take a break. We'll be right back. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to the final segment of Legislative Updates. I'm Doug Thompson, your host, with my co-host John Barker. And in the middle between us is Dan Hawkins, the House Majority Leader. Appreciate you guys coming up.
Yeah.
I know the legislature's out of session for a little while. And when will you know if you're going back into session? Because you're putting together several hundred people all at one time, and there's some risk involved with that. When will you know that?
Well, we have to be back on the 21st of May. That's sine die. That's already set in our adjournment resolution, so we have to be back then. But it's up to the LCC, the Legislative Coordinating Council, to monitor this situation and decide when we do come back. We could come back as early as April 27th, but if it's not safe at that point in time, we will keep monitoring it until, if we don't come back, we have to be back for that one day.
Appreciate you guys taking time to come in, be here today to share with us. And as always, thank you guys. Thank you for the work that you put in. You've been watching Legislative Updates. See you next time.